What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here's Legitical Response, and
the Biden campaign spokesperson, Seth Schuster, says that Biden will not be exiting the race. There's no basis for that. There's nothing that voters have indicated that they agree with that. Senior White House correspondent at CNN, Kayla Tausch, said on X, not only does POTUS not plan to drop out, Biden remains committed, incredibly, to a second debate in September, an advisor tells me. I cannot see that happening.
Yeah, so apparently Biden's not dropping out. I guess that's no surprise. He said that several times on the campaign trail, that he's in it to win it, y'all. He's wanting to fight for democracy. He doesn't want to lose democracy to Donald Trump, who is not going to take democracy anywhere. He's only going to propel it even better. But, I mean, you know, that's a subjective statement. If I'm being totally honest, okay, Joe Biden actually did pretty good at that debate. Sure, he stumbled a lot. He stumbles all the time. But he hung in there. He's you know, it's really hard for me to say anything positive about that. But it's great to see the reactions from people, because now that the people that have been listening to the corporate press say, oh, Joe Biden's just fine, he's a dynamo in the background, and all this other stuff, Joe Biden's fine, he's healthy, and they're hearing all the lies from the corporate press and haven't actually seen Joe Biden like people that pay attention to the news have seen Joe Biden. And we've been screaming for a couple of years now that Joe Biden doesn't have a brain anymore. He's got early onset dementia. It's clear he's getting way too old. His body is slowing down, right? Like, it's not necessarily his age, because look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, what, 3 years younger? But he looks 20 years younger, right? The way he speaks, Donald Trump is still there. You can't tell a difference. Go and look at one of his campaign rally speeches from a week ago, and then compare and contrast that with one of his campaign rally speeches from 2016. There's almost no difference whatsoever, except for, you know, Trump does a lot of improv, right? Like, he might just go rambling on about sharks or electric boats or something like that, just trying to entertain the crowd if a teleprompter goes down, or if he just wants to. That's what Donald Trump does, right? Like back in 2016, he seemed to be a little bit more serious, and now he's just feeding into the crowd. He just talks and says random dumb stuff. But as a matter of fact, we're going to get into that on my next video. But let's see some reactions from average everyday people and see what they think.
It's no longer the conversation, I guess, for like lesser of two evils for me. It's more of like, both of these candidates don't feel like viable options.
Watching the debate yesterday, you have one that lies and you had one that could barely even bring a whole coherent sentence together. And I think that we're in a really bad place when it comes to our presidential options.
I thought Biden is the better choice, but he seemed very, very old. He seemed a lot older than he is, and I think that's going to be kind of tough for people to get over. He was kind of shaky, and he was having a hard time finishing his sentences and losing his train of thought. And someone that's in charge like that, you want him to be 100% sharp.
If I was ever thinking of voting for Biden, I'm sure I would have changed it based upon last night's performance, just because our country needs somebody who's with it.
It was really hard to watch. Like, I wanted to turn it off almost immediately, but I somehow powered through. My wife was not as strong. She left the room because she couldn't take it. My reaction was just a lot of sadness. I think we have not good choices. I was hoping that Biden would do better than he did. I knew what to expect from Trump because he's been that way as long as he's been in politics.
Last night was an indication of how far removed our elected officials and our candidates are from the general public. If anything, that is what the debate yesterday underscored.
I really didn't feel there was a need to watch the debate. At this point, you're not going to really sway anyone's mind. It's the race to the bottom all over again. Last night was the mummy versus the dummy. So, you know, for those who tuned in, it kind of was a waste of time as far as I'm concerned.
So that's not good. I can almost guarantee you that was all Democrat voters, right? We can tell because none of them like Donald Trump. Looking at the debate, if you didn't know either Donald Trump or Joe Biden, it's clear that Donald Trump won that debate simply because Joe Biden shouldn't even be there, right? Joe Biden is too old. He's also incompetent, but let's leave past Joe Biden and leave his policies out of this. Just simply talk about his competency to be there. His mental faculties are waning. We know this once again, but now that is on display for the American people. 100 million people saw that debate, or at least some of that debate. And now the Democrat Party is in absolute panic. Except for a couple of people.
Somebody joining us who is pro-Biden and thinks that he won last night. It's the TikToker Harry Sison. Harry, you think Biden won last night?
One person.
Yeah, no, I did, definitely. On the substance of the conversation, Biden won. His policy was pragmatic, it was logical, and Donald Trump just lied the entire time. Is incapable of telling the truth, is incapable of actually laying out policy. He didn't talk about how he's going to make the American people's lives better. He just, said that, January 6th didn't happen. He talked about the election. He said that overturning Roe was a great thing and forcing 10-year-old girls to give birth is a fantastic thing. That was Donald Trump's debate. So on the substance of the conversation, Joe Biden absolutely prevailed.
Honestly, I think he watched a totally different debate because that debate wasn't about policy. It wasn't about anything. It was actually trying to justify the past 3.5 years and just how poorly it has been. Donald Trump pointed out every single point he could point out to show that Joe Biden is destroying this nation with his garbage policies, with his garbage rules that he's putting out and all this other stuff, the stuff he's allowing on the southern border, his weakness on the world stage, and this guy is willing to prop that up. It's outright insanity. It's utter nonsense. What are you talking about? He sits there and complains about Donald Trump's lies and totally just ignores that Joe Biden actually lied a lot more than Donald Trump did. And what I mean by that is I'm not counting number of lies here, but what Donald Trump was lying about was we had the best this and we had the best numbers for this and veterans like us a lot more and every single cop has endorsed me for the president. Right, that was Donald Trump's lies, right? Joe Biden's lies were statistical lies, lies about his accomplishments, lies about Donald Trump, right? Completely made up hoaxes about Donald Trump that have been long debunked, like the good people on both sides, the bloodbath hoax, the Russia hoax. Joe Biden's lies were actually substantive lies. Donald Trump's lies were essentially surface level, just BS lies that it's okay, come on, dude. Nobody believes that you had H2O. What was that comment even about, talking about the climate? Yeah, he totally dodged the climate issue, but what can you do, right? It's Donald Trump. But the copium needed to actually prop up Joe Biden is utter insanity. Watch this clip. Watch this reaction. This is nuts, y'all.
Donald Trump just said, I don't think even he knows what he just said. Let's just watch this clip, and I'm going to ask you to explain to me what he said.
Dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if he doesn't care, he doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA.
I mean, Harry, what was Biden saying there?
It's a very nice, selectively edited clip. I like it. I don't think that every person ever is going to speak perfectly. So highlighting Biden not speaking perfectly.
No, but I watched the whole thing, Harry. I watched the whole thing.
Broader conversation.
I watched the whole 90 minutes. I don't come at this as on the left or right. I'm not a member of either party. I don't promote either party over the other. I simply come at it as a journalist. I didn't understand 90% of what Biden was saying. I did understand Trump. And understood that he was misleading me a lot of the time, but also understood on the big picture messaging, which he kept ramming down the viewers' throats about the chaos at the border, the state of the economy, particularly on Black Americans and Latino Americans who are gravitating to Trump, and so on and so on. On those big picture messages, he was hitting home hard. I don't know what Biden's messages were. I don't know what he was talking about.
Pierce, did you not understand President Biden when he talked about how the PACT Act now has 1 million people signing up for it?
No,
now
not
getting
really.
Care?
No,
Did you not understand
I
him?
didn't know.
Did you not understand him when he talked about
he
the largest
spoke in this
investment
kind
in
of
fighting climate
weird,
change in world history?
croaky. No, because he spoke in a weird. Look, I'd understood it if you had basically translated him in real time. I'd have understood it.
And that's the whole point. The way Joe Biden is forced to speak because of his dementia, because he's getting older, because he's slowing down, he can't explain his ideas. He can't articulate hardly anything anymore. This is the reality of Joe Biden and his administration. It makes you wonder who's really in charge, right? It's not Joe Biden. And that's not what we need. We don't need a leader who is not in charge. And these people refuse to see it and are just willing to prop up Joe Biden. This debate got kind of out of hand, right? You got to go watch it for yourself. It was pretty good, but here's some more clips from this thing that just will blow your mind, how they prop up Joe Biden.
Did you believe in your heart that Joe Biden is the right person to lead the Democrats into the election in November? And do you believe he can win?
He can win. He's going to win. And as Vice President Harris said, we don't let a 90-minute performance negate 3.5 years of progress. Biden's the only man who has beaten Donald Trump, and he's going to do it again. And I'm looking forward to convicted felon Donald Trump facing justice.
Why are you the only person I've heard in the last 24 hours who's not crying because the performance was so horrendous on the Democrat side?
I don't know. You have to talk to the people that you're surrounded by.
I'm talking about Thomas Friedman and Frank Bruni and all the Democrats.
That's great.
All the Democrats supporting writers for the New York Times and so on. Literally all of them. Van Jones at CNN. They're all crying because it was so bad it brought tears to their eyes. You appear to have watched a pretty different debate. You're happy. You thought it was great. He's going to win a triumphant victory. No, he's not, Harry. Wake up.
Yeah, I don't have the mentality of like, oh, something didn't go our way. Now we have to pout and cry. I have the mentality of, well, if something didn't go our way and that's the way it's perceived, let's get to work. Get out there and get a clipboard and go get some signatures and go door to door. Don't sit here and sit in our own sadness. Let's get to work, as opposed to writing in the New York Times that it didn't go the way we wanted it to.
Once again, more copium. It's not the fact that Joe Biden lost a 90-minute debate. It's not that at all. It's the fact we've been paying attention to this for a couple of years now. We've been seeing the decline escalate and get exponentially faster and faster and faster. Joe Biden is waning. He can't run the country. There is no way, with the escalation of his decline that we've been seeing, there's no way he's going to last another 4 years. And these people just refuse to admit it. And it's funny, we're going back to the whole lies thing, right? Like, as if politicians don't lie. As if Donald Trump never lies. As if Joe Biden didn't lie through his freaking teeth throughout that whole thing. As if Donald Trump didn't lie a whole bunch as well. It's just, like, who expects a politician to tell the truth? Nobody expects a politician to tell the truth. But these people, they're just willing to brush that aside, ignore the fact that Joe Biden is lying, ignore the fact that Joe Biden's mental faculties are waning, that he shouldn't be doing this, he shouldn't be in this position, ignoring the fact that he is getting really, really old, y'all, and Donald Trump doesn't appear to be the same way. You might not agree with Donald Trump's policies, you might not agree with how he wants to run the country, you might think he's a mean billionaire and he's blah, 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 whatever. But the fact is, he wants to do good for the country. He wants to make America great again. Joe Biden, on the other hand, we can see for a fact that Joe Biden wants to destroy the country. He's done it with his open borders. He didn't give a damn about the Afghanistan withdrawal, right? That was an utter disaster. And as Donald Trump pointed out, nobody was fired. Why not, Joe? That's accountability, right? We wanted accountability for that. Those generals should have been fired. Get rid of those people, but nobody was fired. Nobody is ever fired from the Biden administration, regardless of the mistakes made. Look at Pete Buttigieg, right? Like, every time something disastrous happens, nobody gets fired, nobody's held to account. That's what the Biden administration is. He filled his ranks with nothing but far left extreme progressives, and that is terrible for the country because the country is not far left extreme progressives. They are mostly mostly centrists, independent, free thinkers that just want to live their lives and have a good economy and be able to provide stability to their household, provide for their family, food, everything. Joe Biden did nothing to stop the inflation from rising to 9%. But what does Joe Biden do when inflation does rise to 9%? He blames it on Donald Trump, right? That 9% inflation didn't take place until 14 months after Joe Biden took office. A lot of people try to blame that on COVID. Well, hang on. He had 14 months to try to stop inflation from rising, right? These people filling his ranks are either incompetent or they didn't care whatsoever if inflation rose to 9% because they did absolutely nothing to try to stop it. They didn't raise the rates. I'm not an economist, so I don't know all the steps you can take, but I do know that they didn't change anything about their policy. They didn't do a damn thing to try to stop this from happening. And then Joe Biden, when asked about it, once again tries to blame it on Trump and then says, yes, I understand you have a right to be mad. Joe, that's not what we want to hear. We want to hear, what are you going to do to fix it? It's just been crazy with Joe Biden. It's been one disaster after another. His garbage policies, his garbage actions. He looks weak on the world stage. It's his whole administration has been just an unmitigated disaster. And to try to deny that and try to prop this up and say, yes, we want another 4 years of this is utter insanity. But the thing is, it's people in Joe Biden's orbit, right? If you have dementia, you don't really know what's going on around you. And for people to actually tell Joe Biden, hey, you did a good job, buddy. You answered every single question.
Oh, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Jill Biden should really stop to think, like, what is going through these people's minds, right? Like, okay, you might see a totally different debate going on here, right? You might think, oh, well, he did a great job. But when you see the reactions of other people, the Democrat Party in utter panic mode talking about replacing Joe Biden, and you still come out and say, no, we're still running, we're still hanging in there, we're still going to run Joe. What? Okay, now we've got a problem. You're allowing your ego to get in front of what's best for the country. Right? These people think that Donald Trump's going to come in and be a dictator. And a lot of them actually think that democracy's just going to evaporate or something, right? Like, well, we're never going to get any votes again, and he's going to be king of the United States of America. It's all Trump derangement syndrome stuff. So it makes you think, okay, if Donald Trump is this really, really big, bad orange man, why are you still running Joe Biden? Why are you willing to put your ego out in front of what you think is best for the nation? It doesn't make any sense, y'all, right? Like, I think from Donald Trump's perspective, keep Joe Biden in the race. Keep Joe Biden in the race. But you know, a lot of Democrats, these are people too, right? Like, these people, they want the best, what's best for the country. Like the people, not the politicians, because we've already known, right, from all the stories I've covered on this channel, the politicians don't give a damn about what happens, especially the Democrat politicians. Otherwise, they would vote very differently for legislation than what they do. They would vote very differently for appropriations than what they do. They wouldn't vote in the interests of the lobby. They wouldn't vote for a $1.7 trillion deficit spending because they know that's going to utterly damage the dollar. That's going to make inflation go up. It's going to cause the value of the dollar to go down, in other words, right? Printing more money to cover that $1.7 trillion is ridiculous. It's illogical, and it makes no sense. So it makes you think, why do these people vote in the interests of that instead of voting in the interests of, hey, how about balance your budget, right? How about not allowing delusional people to run your country, right? What are these people actually thinking? But it just blows my mind that there's people, even after seeing this debate, who are still willing to get behind Joe Biden and say, oh, well, it was just one poor performance. We don't need to throw away his whole campaign just because of one poor performance. They just are, they've got Democrat colored glasses on or something, because they haven't seen the utter disaster, the unmitigated disaster that the Joe Biden's administration has been. They haven't seen Joe Biden's decline because they're not paying attention to that, because they obviously don't care. I pay attention to the news. I'm constantly in the news. I'm constantly seeing all these little rules and all this other BS that's going on, Supreme Court decisions, the willingness to deny oversight and say, we don't care about oversight. That is not how you're supposed to run a federal administration. That is not how the federal government is supposed to act, right? Maybe you could have got away with that in, 20, 30 years ago, but we have the internet now. We have fact checkers now. We have people that can go and look and get the facts and see exactly what you're doing. We are more awake than we have ever been, and we have the ability to wake up. So the fact that these people are willing to prop up the lies and prop up the administration when there's nothing underneath, there's nothing holding it up except for these people. Yeah, these people are deranged. That is almost the definition of what it is to be in a cult. Cenk Uygur can see it. Hassan Piker, for God's sakes, can see it. Even David Pakman. Shout out to David Pakman, because I went over to his channel just to see what he said about the debate, and unmitigated disaster for the Democrat Party. Yeah, David Pakman said that. So, now, I give Pakman props for that, but Brian Tyler Cohen, no. He's got the Democrat colored glasses on, y'all, and he can't see the forest for all the trees in the way. But I think that's all I got for this one, y'all. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.